Well. Welcome back, my viewers, to a new episode of Into the Lore of Dead by Daylight. And today, we will be looking at Tools of Torment with this killer, the Skull Merchant, and with his survivors, as well as something new that this killer did to an old map. Deep in the heart of the Shelter Woods lies a hunting camp, where luxury and brutality coalesce. Many grotesque tools have been crafted within its walls. The high life indeed. Originally, this map belonged to Evan McMillan, or Trapper as he's known. However, when the Skull Merchant arrived, things changed, and you could say she bought him out. Talita Lyra. If you were to ask, Talita Lyra would tell you that what she wanted in life more than anything was to bring people together. Whether it was her father selling out clubs for the latest Foro band he signed, or her mother showing out Botafogo, Lapa, or Ipanema to groups of tourists from around the world. Talita loves seeing people come together to share their passion and form meaningful connections. As a teenager, Talita found her community through kite fighting. Her uncle Inatsu taught Talita and her younger brother Renato to settle their petty squabbles through making kites and flying them into each other until someone's string is cut and a winner decided. Talita and Renato would spend their summer at Inatsu's beachfront kite shop, working in the mornings and fighting kites in the afternoon. Their antics caught the attention of kids and adults alike, and it wasn't long before Talita started teaching kite fighting at the shop. Eager to connect with even more people, Talita will film these fights and post them online. Free publicity, she told her uncle. Little did Talita knew that her kite fighting videos would be her ticket to stardom. Videos that feature her and her commentary would get more hits, with viewers commenting on Talita's kite fighting insight and her charm. The videos even caught the eye of a modeling agent. Before she knew it, Talita was booking photo shoots for print ads and appearing in commercials. She loved the work and knew it wouldn't be long before she could transition to acting. Then she would be capital F famous, like the stars of the telenovels she watched growing up. Her community will span all of Brazil, and maybe even beyond. But it was not meant to be. Little by little, modeling took Talita further from the kite shop. First, she had to give up playing to let the nicks on her hands heal. Then she had to spend her days networking, schmoozing, and lining up gigs well in advance. By the time Talita graduated high school, her agent was eager to get her even more work, which meant even less time at the kite shop. All this hard work and dedication would be worth it, she told herself. Years passed in a flurry. Talita was burned out and sick of the awkward stares and lingering glances from strangers. Fame, it seemed, was not as glamorous as she thought it would be. Late nights talking with Renato helped her realize what it was she was missing. Connection. Genuine connection with like-minded people. That is how her father and mother drew people to them, and kite fighting was what connected Talita with others. Within a few short months, Talita had quit modeling, using her money to open her own shop, with Inatsu's blessing, of course, and brought Renato as her business partner. Fun Kites Rio became the premier destination for kite fighting materials, and Talita's fame helped attract even more people to the hobby. It was a great start, but Talita, as always, wanted to reach even more people. Fun Kites Rio's first tournament was a success, drawing hundreds of participants to the outskirts of Rio to watch dozens upon dozens of kites dance in the sky. In between socializing with old and new friends, helping at the concession stands, and even playing a match or two, Talita found a few moments to cry happy tears by herself. She had done it. This was exactly the community she wanted to create. By the time the sun set and the tournament came to a close, the field was covered in litter. Talita and Renato stayed behind to clean up. The full moon was high in the sky when Renato noticed something. A strange drone floating over the field. Talita's mischievous childhood self came roaring back. Time for a challenge. a race to take down the drone. Renato couldn't help but accept. In the end, Talita's kite was the one to get caught in the drone's rotor blades. She cheered as Renato watched the thing sputter into the forest, leaving a trail of smoke in its wake. Talita didn't want to look for the fallen drone. She was happy to leave her kite behind, but Renato walked off to the trees on his own, and Talita couldn't let her brother wander the dark forest by himself. Deep in the woods, Renato found more than just a drone. Talita heard a scream and watched as a man drenched in blood emerged from the forest. He grabbed her brother, desperate for help, but it was already too late. Talita nearly screamed as the man split in two, and the woman stepped forward, covered in high-tech hunting gear. Why wasn't Renato moving? She grabbed her brother and ran. Another drone floated overhead, like the one she had downed with her kite. They were the hunter's eyes. She had plucked one of them from the sky. Renato was in shock, and Talita saw that his arm has been cut deeply. When? It didn't matter. He was bleeding, and they needed to get to safety. That was when she saw the factory, a rotting brick building collapsing under the weight of time. Talita led Renato into the factory and found a dark alcove to hide. The hunter followed, and she dragged some wooded beams across the entrance. The only way out, blocked off. Talita knew time was running out. If the hunter didn't find them first, her drone would. Talita peeked from her alcove. The factory was changing, its dark and dingy walls dissolving into a bright and sunny landscape. A beach. She found her resolve, a way out, a chance to survive. All she had to do was run. Talita put her arm around Renato and pulled him to his feet. She thought she heard Renato telling her to stop, but she ignored him. This was their chance. They ran along the beach, leaving the hunter behind, kicking up warm sand with each stride. Talita never stopped running, not even when that sand turned into a swirling black fog. Talita Lyra has mastered the art of competitive flair, fighting kites with skill and flourish. Her personal perks: friendly competition, teamwork, power of two, and cut loose, allow her to perform the series of stealthy fast vaults, inspire faster repairs from teammates, and help allies move faster after they are healed by her. Cut loose. You get in enough trouble, you know how to get out of it. After performing a rush vault action and a chase, Cut Loose activates for the next 6 seconds. Suppress both the loud noise notification and the sound effects triggered by rushing to vault. Successfully performing another rush vault action while Cut Loose is active resets the timer. Cut Loose has a cooldown of 45 seconds.
I know how we can get out of here. Quick, this way!
Friendly competition. You revel in the community spirit of competition and inspire others to follow suit. Whenever you complete a generator with at least one other survivor, friendly competition activates. Increase your repair speed and that of the other survivors who completed the repairs with you by 5% for the next 75 seconds.
Come on, let's do this!
Teamwork, power of two. It is hard to keep up with you, but it does not stop people from trying. Whenever you finish healing another survivor, teamwork, power of two activates, and both you and the healed survivor benefit from the following effect. Grants a 5% haste status effect as long as you stay within 12 meters of one another, or one of you loses a health state. Teamwork Power 2 has a cooldown of 140 seconds. Survivors can only be affected by one instance of Teamwork Power 2 at a time.
You good? Then keep up!
Talita Lyra is very competitive, and she'll show that to the survivors. But we cannot forget someone else. Her little brother. Renato Lyra. Growing up, Renato acted less like a child and more like a scientist, studying the world and people around him. He would poke classmates in the face or stand too close to them, curious to see their reaction. It was no surprise that young Renato had a hard time making friends. He was often the target of bullies, especially when he started advancing through school. Sitting in classes with kids a year or two older than him, and still outperforming them, did not ingratiate Hanato with his peers. Hanato enjoyed two things: solving puzzles and annoying his older sister, Talita. It was his way of showing his love. Hanato saw how easily Talita won over kids and adults alike and wanted to be like her. So when Talita started to take an interest in flying kites, Hanato did too. His parents knew Hanato needed help socializing. When he turned 13, they volunteered Hanato to work at Uncle Inatsu's kite shop on the beach during the summer. Talita was making new friends there. Maybe you would too. Instead, Talita spent the day telling Hanato what to do, which annoyed him more than anything. The bickering got so bad that Uncle Inatsu had to teach them the art of kite fighting to settle their differences. Hanato loved it immediately. He enjoyed kite fighting so much he didn't even mind when he lost. As Inatsu expected, they started to fight less and play more. If only Hanato had such luck with other people. Talita would tell him to stop being so competitive with the kids they were teaching to kite fight, but Hanato wouldn't listen. He hated it when anyone told him what to do. When Talita started spending less time at the shop to focus on her modeling, Hanato had to step up as teacher. More than anything, he would hear how much everyone missed his sister. Hanato graduated from high school 2 years early, and his parents suggested he take some time to do charitable work. University or any early career could wait. Hanato just wanted to be left alone and treated like an adult. Talita suggested that Hanato find a place to play guitar. If he could practice his guitar playing and put himself out there, Talita promised the family would finally stop telling him what to do all the time. That was music to his ears. Hanato decided to volunteer at a local retirement home. First, he played guitar for the residents. Then he started helping out in the kitchen, and before he knew it, Hanato was learning what it meant to truly care about other people, to make the effort to help others without getting anything in return. For the first time, Hanato felt like he had the power to make other people's lives better. This insight came in handy when Talita was at a crossroad of her own. She wanted to pursue modeling and acting, but she missed the kite shop more than anything else. Hanato didn't do more than listen when Talita needed someone to talk to, but after many late nights and long chats, Talita emerged with a new sense of purpose. When Talita approached him to be a partner in her new venture, a kite fighting shop called Fun Kites Rio, Hanato accepted immediately. Building a business from scratch would be the ultimate puzzle. Hanato's analytic mind helped the shop in those early months. He encouraged Talita to use her fame as a model to help market the shop and book her into conventions and symposiums across the country to get the word out on Fun Kites Rio. Over time, the shop built up such a following that when Talita suggested they stage a kite fighting tournament, it seemed like a no-brainer. The tournament was a flurry of activity. All day, friends and strangers alike would approach Hanato and thank him for his hard work. Kite fighting meant something to these people. It made their lives better, and Hanato contributed to their overall happiness and well-being. Before he knew it, the tournament was over and the moon was high in the sky. It didn't matter that he was tired or hungry, or out in some remote field picking up garbage. It was all worth it. He only stopped cleaning when he noticed something up above. A drone. It made him think of the games he played with Talita growing up, using their kites to take down remote airplane kites of people on the beach they didn't like, and so on. Talita must have been thinking the same thing. She challenged him to see who could take down the drone, another chance to show up his sister, the perfect end to the perfect day. But no, this was a mistake. Hanato felt a chill. He tried to stop Talita, but she was already cheering. The drone ate up her kite and began its crooked smoking descent into the forest. They were in trouble. It was only when he ran for the forest that Talita sobered up and followed. It didn't take long to find the drone embedded in a tree, kite dangling from its dead rotor blades. The sharp string dug into Hanato's fingers as he worked the knots. He nearly had the kite free, when a bloody hand reached out from the dark forest and grabbed him. Hanato jumped at the sight of the injured man. He was raving, babbling, desperate for help. Hanato put his hands out to keep the man from falling. It was already too late. 2 blades sliced through the man and along Hanato's arm. There was no time to look down at the wound. The blades were up in the air. The man was cut in half, and a woman, clad in armor, accompanied by a drone, like the drone Talita downed, was standing before him. Hanato knew he had to move, but he couldn't. Time was running out. Then he felt another hand on him, pulling him back. Everything was a blur. The cut in his arm was deep and throbbing, but he knew Talita had him, and he knew he had to run. The night grew cold as they stopped to hide. Hanato struggled to regain his breath. There was no time. As quickly as they stopped, Talita was pulling him again, towards an abandoned factory. But there are no factories out here, Hanato thought to himself. The factory is even colder than the forest. He clutched his arm, trying to stop the bleeding. His head was swimming. How much blood had he lost already? Talita was guarding him in some dark corner of the factory, and suddenly, she was pulling Hanato to his feet, telling him to run. Run where? She said something about a beach. Hanato tried to stop her, tried pulling her back, but he was too weak. He couldn't see any beach. All he could see was a black fog closing in on them. Hanato Lyra always keeps his eyes on the prize, and he expects the same from his teammates. His personal perks, Blood Rush, Teamwork, Collective Stealth, and Background Player allow him to move faster when near a chase, recover from exhaustion instantly, and hide his and an ally's scratch marks after healing. Background Player. You are not usually the center of attention, and in some cases, this can be a good thing. When another survivor is picked up, Background Player activates for the next 10 seconds. When you start running, break into a sprint at 200 of your normal running movement speed for 5 seconds. Background Player calls it the exhausted status effect for 40 seconds. Background Player cannot be used when exhausted. You forget about me? Blood Rush. Your mind and body are honed for great feats, allowing you to push through with extra effort when necessary. Once you are one hook away from instant death, Blood Rush activates. Press the active ability button to lose a health state and instantly recover from the exhausted status effect. Cause the broken status effect for 20 seconds, while you are automatically healing back to healthy. Cancels the healing effect upon taking damage. Blood Rush is disabled for the remainder of the trial after use. Just gotta push through. Teamwork, Collective Stealth. When someone helps you out, you respond in kind. Whenever another survivor finishes healing you, Teamwork, Collective Stealth activates, and both you and the survivor who healed you benefit from the following effect. Suppresses your scratch marks for as long as you stay 12 meters of one another, or one of you loses a health state. Teamwork, Collective Stealth has a cooldown of 140 seconds. Survivors can only be affected by one instance of Teamwork, Collective Stealth at a time. I'm good. But keep it down. Talita Hanato, sister and brother, working together in this nightmare cat and mouse game. But there's a little bit more to them. Well, as usual, let the observer take it away.
She had never seen anything go so high or fall so far. Uncle Ignacio cheers along with the rest of the crowd. Young Talita's ears vibrate from the sound, but she keeps her eyes on the falling kite. It looks like it's dancing, twirling in the wind as it descends. The match was the highlight of the day, exciting from the moment the 10 contenders threw their kites skyward. The cheers came in waves as strings crossed, and one by one the kites fell. The silence surprised Talita as the contenders on the field came down to 2 men, a teenager from Botafogo and Uncle Ignacio. Mom and Dad hug Ignacio so hard they don't notice baby Renato crying in Mom's arms. Ignacio is beaming, the same twinkle Talita saw in his eye as he assembled his kite that morning. She watches Ignacio walk up to the teenager and shake his hand. The boy smiles. Of course he smiles. He's among friends and peers on a bright, sunny day in the most beautiful country in the world, celebrating. The boy doesn't care that he lost. It's the people around us who matter most. Talita looks above the crowd and watches the boy's kite touch down softly on the ground. He fidgets with his hands. All he wants to do is fly a kite or work on the puzzle sitting in his bedroom. So much talking. It's useless. It's boring. We're here to fly kites, not talk. Renato looks around at the other kids. None of them are fidgeting like he is. They're not shifting their feet or looking around. It's so strange how they can stand so still and watch Talita demonstrate kite design. Not just watch, but listen. Really listen. But people always listen to Talita. They listen to her thoughts and laugh at her jokes and talk to her and invite her to things. Grown-ups, kids, everybody. Renato tried one of her jokes himself. No one laughed. He stops studying the other kids and watches his sister. She is special, even among the kids their age. He makes eye contact with her and she smiles. He smiles back, but it's a sad smile. He knows, no matter how hard he tries, no one will ever look at him the way they look at her. Finally, Talita ends her talk and it's time to throw their kites into the air. It's a beautiful, sunny day, bright even through his sunglasses. He hears some of the kids comment that it's too bright to see their kites so high above the beach, but he doesn't let them distract him. He can see his kite just fine, and he can see his opponent's kites too. Talita says it's unsportsmanlike to knock out other kites so quickly. Renato never understood this. It is literally the game. His smile grows as each opponent falls. A true, joyous smile. Hold on. Why is my string gone slack? Renato looks up and sees his kite floating downward. Talita's cheering next to him, grabbing his shoulders and whooping. No, this cannot happen. If I can't be popular and I can't be a winner, then what can I be? Talita accepts the bottle from her friend on the right. Whatever's in the bottle, she likes it. After a generous sip, she passes the bottle to her friend on the left. They are sitting around a small bonfire on the beach, all 10 of them, laughing and singing into the quiet night. The perfect capper to a long, tiring, fun day at Inacio's shop. Renato went home immediately after they finished closing up. He rambled about needing to prep, and his rambling turned into a lecture about how Talita should prep too. She stopped listening at that point. What a silly boy. Talita laughs at the thought. Renato doesn't have the slightest idea. This time with friends, most of whom she met at the beach, is many-splendored. It is careless abandon. It is utter joy. And it is prep. Talita has crossed kites with most of these kids. Some of them she had taught herself. Others were already regulars when she started working for her uncle. All of them are very good kite fighters. And Talita has been around them long enough to realize they fight kites the way they tell jokes, sing songs, and ask questions. Some of them handle victory with more grace than others, and some of them suffer defeat with more bitterness. Being with her friends helps her be a better kite fighter, before, during, and after the match. And she gets to stay up all night having fun. Try beating that, Renato. It was his most difficult match. Renato always liked ending a kite fight quickly, and he knows that Talita knows this. She did what he expected her to do, stay away from him early on and let him take down most of the competitors. Renato was happy to do it. There's a reason I can take down these other fighters. This sport is a puzzle. I've put in the work. I've studied the puzzle. When the field of competitors narrowed to Renato and Talita, he turned his focus on her. He went on the offensive, chasing her back and forth across the sky. Her theatrics always annoyed him. This is not supposed to be a show. This is a fight. Renato finally outmaneuvers his sister and catches her string with his kite. Tangled, they tug at their strings. Not too much, Renato reminds himself. One sharp pull is all it takes to snap your string and hand victory to your opponent. The crowd is louder than ever, waiting in anticipation to see who will win. But Renato already knows it will be him. A few gentle pulls of his string, and he saws through Talita's line. His kite soars, the last one in the air, as Talita's begins its descent. The crowd cheers, but Renato doesn't hear them. Victory is for him and him alone, and one other person. He runs to his sister and picks her up in a big bear hug. Whatever their differences, whatever way she bothers him, Talita has always been there, pushing Renato to be better in every way, whether she knows it or not. Renato won, but it is their victory together. She sits at one of the tables. Her dad says she's too young to sit at the bar, even though at 11 in the morning, the bar is not open. As if she's going to jump behind the bar and start serving herself cachaça or something. Dad returns from outside, holding the stranger by the shoulder. He looks like a grown-up, but Talita knows that everyone over 20 looks like a grown-up to her. At 10 years old, the world is still divided into kids, big kids, and grown-ups. Talita was with her dad when they crossed paths with the stranger. Talita was going to be dropped off at home for lunch. Mom is home for the afternoon and Dad needs the afternoon with his band. But that plan changed when they found the stranger spray painting the club in the alley. Dad takes the stranger across the club. He's calling out for Angelo, the club owner. He doesn't seem to notice Talita or his band hanging out on the stage for that matter. He wouldn't want me to follow him. He yelled at me to go back in the club when the stranger started cussing outside. She shifts from seat to seat, table to table, closer to Dad, Angelo, and the stranger. They're standing together by the hall to Angelo's office. They have no idea Talita is inching closer and closer. Dad shows Angelo a picture on his phone. She remembers Dad took a picture of the graffiti. Angelo studies the picture, and his usual scowl lightens into a smile. She doesn't hear what he says, but she hears the three of them laughing. By the time she's close enough to eavesdrop, Angelo has taken the stranger down the hall. Dad finally notices Talita. "What just happened, Dad?" He looks back down the hallway. "I think I just got that young artist a job." Renato flicks the switch and the lights crackle and hum. It is still dark outside, and through the window he can hear the waves rolling against the shore. 2 hours. That's how long Renato has until Uncle Ignacio comes to open the kite shop. The floor beneath Renato's sandals crunch as he gathers his supplies. Uncle Ignacio gave up trying to sweep the sand out of the shop years ago. He would say the shop was one with the beach. Talita would complain about it, but she never did anything about it. Today is the day that Renato does something about it. And he wouldn't just stop at sweeping some sand off the floor. The counters need a deep clean, and the windows. Renato is excited to replace the garbage bin with the one he bought last night, the one with the lid that you open with the foot pedal. Once he sweeps the last of the sand out of the shop door, he fills a bucket with soapy water. I've been working at Ignacio's shop for 3 years now. I came into work every day. I did my job well enough to make Ignacio and Talita happy. But I should have stepped up like this long ago. He scrubs the grease stains off the floor, taking the last stubborn grains of sand with them. He remembers what Mauricio told him in his last days of hospice care. Everyone gets to where they're supposed to be, and everyone gets there in their own time. Renato grew to love volunteering at the retirement home. Taking care of others taught him a lot about taking care of himself and the people closest to him. He blinks and realizes the sun is pouring through the open windows. He can hear people laughing along the beach as they put down their towels and open their parasols. Ignacio's at the door, speechless. The shop hasn't looked this clean in years. Wait until Talita sees it. It was supposed to be a fun girls' night out. Talita walks back to the table with a tray of shots and realizes Louisa, Dolores, and Beatrice aren't there. Where did they go? She hears excited chatter from a group of girls standing by the bathroom. They're not waiting in line. In between the excited chatter, she hears yelling from the other side of the bathroom door. Talita breaks through the crowd of girls and into the bathroom. She remembers Dolores had mentioned that she would smack Antonia if she saw her here again, and she only got angrier the more Talita and the others tried to calm her down. Talita stands, gobsmacked, at the sight of Dolores and Antonia on the white tiled floor, arms flailing. I must have missed the big smack Dolores was talking about. Louisa and Beatrice are against the wall, yelling for them to stop. Someone creeps out of a stall and steps around the fight, leaving without even washing her hands. Talita is scared and excited. Let's see if I remember what Mom taught me. Antonia is on top, swinging her arms down, ignoring Dolores' cries of "Stop! Get off! And leave me alone!" Talita dives in, brings her arms around Antonia, and rolls her away from Dolores, pinning her on the ground. Antonia tries to push Talita off her, but Talita comes down, putting her weight on Antonia. She curls her arms and legs around Antonia's. Try taking a swing at me now, Antonia. But she can't. They are interlocked on the floor, almost frozen in place. Antonia can't hurt Talita, and Talita can't hurt Antonia. But the point isn't to win the fight by hurting anyone. The point is to win the fight by stopping it. Mom wanted me to be able to handle myself without getting arrested. Talita tries to speak without compromising her position. She shouts to be heard over Antonia's obscenities. "Get a bouncer in here, now!" Beatrice runs out of the bathroom. Dolores watches, stunned, amazed. "Is that jiu-jitsu?" Talita smiles. Mom always said it would come in handy one day. His mother would always say no one is an island. Renato knew what the saying meant, and he knew it wasn't true. Renato felt like an island most of his life, either unable or unwilling to build bridges and connect to the other islands that would pass him by. Renato breathed in the clean air. No cars allowed here. If I really were an island, I'd want to be Isla de Paqueta. His family had brought him out here when he was a teenager for Festa de São Roque. His family loved it. Everyone loved it. He hated it. Too crowded, too loud, and the fireworks. Renato couldn't understand how anyone could enjoy fireworks. But Renato isn't a teenager anymore, and today isn't Festa de São Roque. The island is quiet and peaceful. The sun is shining, and the breeze is cool. His feet ache from hiking the island, but he doesn't mind. There is peace to be had on Paqueta that is unlike anywhere else. Renato drifts into a lush park and sits on a bench. His fingers twitch. He doesn't have his guitar with him or any puzzles. His phone battery died long ago. He relaxes his hands and tries to enjoy the stillness. An older couple walk past him, towards the trees, and roll out a blanket on the grass. Renato watches them as they eat and drink, laugh, and kiss. He wonders if they are from Rio or Brazil. He wonders if they have kids and are enjoying a stolen moment away from family. They look happy. Renato tries to picture himself sitting on that blanket, having a picnic with... who? It's hard to imagine anyone would want that sort of life with him. I'm happy to be an island, I think. I've got a long life ahead of me. I may change my mind. The breeze picks up again and he closes his eyes, taking it in.
Adriana and Mai, the Skull Merchant. The self-made millionaire, Adriana Mai, came from a humble home in Fortaleza, Brazil. Her father, Seita, moved to Brazil as a young man, hoping to see a side of the world completely different than his hometown at Hokkaido. A talented illustrator, he spent his spare time designing colorful characters and worlds. While sketching patrons of a local jazz club, he was approached by Belinda, the owner, to work on a logo. What began as a business partnership soon became a romantic one, and within a couple of years, Adriana was born. Adriana excelled in all facets of education. A house full of art and music honed a brilliant mind, and her intelligence was only exceeded by her obsessive drive to be the best. While scoring at the top of every class, she was often on the receiving end of disciplinary action due to her overly competitive and sometimes violent nature during schoolyard games. Adriana's mother did her best to keep her on the right track, but her father was increasingly absent as his own obsessive drive ramped up. Adi Valente, a manga about a young girl who saves and protects the weak with her quirky robot companion. Despite working long hours at a canning facility and writing his manga in his spare time, he somehow managed a little time every night to share his wild and highly imaginative illustration with his daughter. By middle school, Adriana was courted by a fancy private school due to her high performance and needing money. Seita spoke to publishers about his unpublished manuscripts. He managed to find a small local publisher to carry Adi Vente, but it meant more work than he could handle. He eventually lost his job at the cannery, giving him more time to develop and illustrate his series. Adriana loved the manga, but the family was forced into hard times. In her final semester, Sato requested higher royalties, but the publishing company went into administration and decided to cut the series, no longer able to afford the school fees. Adriana was pulled out of the elite academy where she was at the top of her class. Belinda was able to negotiate her graduation, but another student was able to take her place at the head of the class. Adriana was furious. On summer break, she learned everything about her rival. Where he lived, where he hung out, what he liked to do in his spare time, what he listened to, what he watched, everything. She even stalked him on his way home one late summer evening and considered the myriad ways she could ruin his life. But, in the end, she did nothing. Though something awakened within her, and she felt like the anti-hero in her new story her father had been exploring. Seita retreated further into himself and began producing this newer, darker manga, inspired by his visions and nightmares. A manga about a woman who hunts and guts the weak in a nightmarish realm with drones made of salvaged skulls and bones. But, unable to sell this manga, San Hadros Sombrios, the family became solely reliant on Belinda's income. Adriana, looking for ways to make her own money, started a website dedicated to the world of Brazilian manga. It became a runaway success, and significant advertising dollars started to roll in. She realized she had no interest in writing for it though, so she convinced other kids to write for it for free while the money flooded in. The second she got an offer, she sold the site and never looked back. Proud of her accomplishment, she came home to show her parents the check. She never got a chance to show her father though. He walked out the door that morning, never to return, leaving only a stack of unpublished manuscripts about the skull merchant mercilessly hunting those she deemed worthy of her efforts. To help her mother, Adriana began to study at the library, teaching herself investment economics, and soon tripled her money. By the age of 18, barely with a high school degree, she had already become a self-made millionaire. As stories of this investment wonder kind spread across Brazil, more and more doors opened for her. Before long, she had the kind of money that allowed her to buy small companies that she would gut, replace with non-union workers, and sell at a profit. The only break she took from her corporate obsession was to pore over her father's manuscripts, trying to understand this chilling world he had created. By her mid-20s, she was regularly flipping companies while finalizing on a real estate firm. 2 members of the board moved to block the sale, pointing to the trail of hollowed-out husks she left in her wake. Adriana was frustrated. It took her weeks to find out who the holdouts were, but once she did, she thought about how it would feel to hurt them. She learned everything about the directors, stalked their every move, manipulated them into attending a conference in Switzerland, and, while on a retreat in the Alps, she made her move, inspired by the skull merchant and feeling something within demanding expression. She tracked them with a prototype drone and brutally dismembered them with a cruel 2-bladed weapon. The rush of emotion and adrenaline was unlike anything she had ever experienced before, and the company was hers. Thus began an unsettling cycle. Swoop in on a business, destroy anyone standing in her way, and gut the company for maximum profit. She targeted companies with larger-than-life CEOs and hoped one would present a challenge. None ever did. They just disappeared unremarkably. An aggressive manager of a fireworks company, known for his survival tours, was her last target, right at home in Brazil. Survival tours. A perfect cover. Adriana lured him to a decommissioned airship hangar. The hunt started at dawn and went the distance, with her still tracking him well into the evening. Locating him, she used one of her drones to direct him to the dead end, when a pair of kites suddenly appeared on camera and the feed died. Her face hardened, her eyes widened with disbelief as she slammed her laptop shut and charged to where the drone had crashed. There she found her prey reaching out to someone in the growing dark for help. Witnesses. Not part of the plan. Without a second to lose, she plunged her blade through his stomach, exposing meat and bone and a dying heart. The vitiated body staggered left and right, sending a shower of red over the green foliage. As her victim collapsed with a thud, she turned to their young witnesses. Wrong place, wrong time. They broke into a sprint. She gave chase, her blade thirsting for more blood. The lush green of the trees melted into a thick black fog. Real life warped into something like Sanhandros Sombríos. A sick grin crept across her face as she rushed forward to begin a new chapter in her life. The Skull Merchant is a tactical killer, able to place drones that detect and debilitate her targets. Her personal perks, thwack, leverage, and game afoot allow her to gain haste from pursuing her obsession, force screams and survivors when breaking breakable pallets or walls, and reduce survivors' healing speed the more times you place them on hooks. Game afoot. First you pick your prey, then you pick it apart. Whenever you hit the survivor with the highest cumulative chase time with a basic attack, they become the obsession. While you are chasing your obsession, Game Afoot activates its secondary effect, grants a 5% haste status effect for 10 seconds after damaging a generator or breaking a breakable wall or pallet. You can only be assessed with one survivor at a time.
This one might actually be a challenge.
Leverage. Like in business, you profit most when those around you suffer most. Each time you hook a survivor, leverage activates and gains 1 token, up to a maximum of 10 tokens. For each token, the altruistic and personal healing speeds of survivors are reduced by a stackable 5% for the next 30 seconds, up to a maximum of 50%.
The best way to raise a profit is to cut expenditures. Cut everything.
Thwack. Your prey is terrified by your relentless pursuit. After hooking a survivor, thwack activates. The next time you break a breakable wall or pallet, all survivors within 32 meters of your location will scream and reveal their aura for 4 seconds.
All those who stood in their path feared their mighty thwack.
Some say greed and obsession changes a person. And with Adriana, they'd be right. But this isn't the end of her story, as, well, like always, we'll have the observer take it away.
Second place. She wants to retch. She never comes in second place. If it weren't for those idiots at the publishing house canceling Dad's series, she'd be able to finish her semester. But they don't know genius when they see it. So here she is, watching her grades go into freefall as João takes top marks in the class. João. The name makes her spit. He's not special. He should be in second place. She sits at home, powerless. Maybe she can throw a wrench in the works. Call the school. Get him in trouble. She calls. She doesn't have a plan, but she calls. A secretary picks up. Hello? Adriana hesitates. Hello? I'm calling about my son, João. I didn't receive his grades. Can I confirm the address on file? The secretary, just like that, gives her everything. So easy. She hangs up, stares at the phone. Why had she done that? Her mind drifts to Dad's comic. This is what she would do. Gather information and exploit. She dumps her bike behind a fire hydrant, checks her watch. Should be any minute now. João walks out right on cue from his fencing lesson. She writes it down. She knows where he'll be better than even he knows. In an hour, he'll be home playing video games. He'll go to bed at 10. He'll wake up, go to school, stop by his friend's house, bike home, get tutored on math. This has been her entire month. Following João, learning his schedule, learning everything about him. She still doesn't know why. It felt good to have this power over someone. The power to know that at any time she could disrupt his entire routine, his entire life. She gets on her bike and tails him on his way home. There's an alley he always takes as a shortcut. Not a particularly safe place to be when you're being pursued. But, of course, he doesn't know that he's being pursued. She's being careful. His bike goes over a nail. He flips over the handlebars, scrapes his knees and palms, swears. He sits there, staring at his flat tire, doing nothing. Useless. This is the boy who's taking first place honors in her class. This feckless cretin. She imagines jumping him right now. It would be impossible for anyone to see her. This is where she'd do it. From Dad's manga, she thinks to herself, this is where I'd do it. She pores over the black, scratchy drawings of Soñadoras Sombríos. There must be some kind of clue in here. Something she missed. Something that would explain why her father walked out the door that day and never came back. There were no answers. Not to that question, anyway. This comic that her father had worked on every night to the dim light of an old accountant's lamp instead lay out a blueprint. A blueprint on how to live. She loved Arivalente, her father's first manga, but it didn't teach her anything. Not like this. The Skull Merchant has a system. She learns everything she can about her target, stalks their digital and literal footprints until she has a complete profile of their every move. Knows them better than they know themselves. And then she waits until they're completely stuck in their routine, and she shatters it. She chooses only the most elite opponents. Initially, it was to protect the weak, but that pretension faded quickly. Eventually, her only goal is to destroy those who challenge her claim to be the best, takes them out of their element, and destroys them. Scared, alone, and far from home. Adriana sees the parallels. The rich, comfortable executives she deals with daily operate with a sickening detachment, so used to their lives of comfort, convinced of their own invincibility. It won't be easy to crack their armor, but worthwhile endeavors are rarely easy. The Skull Merchant dips her blade into the fetid water, lets the blood and ichor slide off the gleaming carbon fiber, lets herself relax. Another job done. She removes her weapon slowly out of the water, taking care not to let any fall on the floor, and hangs it on the wall. Water is a terrible thing to waste. She walks across her tiny Spartan room and plugs a cord from the wall into the nape of her neck. The real world dissolves around her, replaced by the other world. A bright world, a clean, perfect lie. She stares right into the sun for a few moments, stopping only to close some particularly invasive pop-ups that have burrowed their way into her hardware. "You're the merchant, right?" A timid voice calls out somewhere behind her. She turns. A chipmunk with jacked human arms stares back at her. "I might be." "Who's asking?" "Someone with a job." This guy probably paid top credits for that avatar, and he looks like an absolute joke. She isn't laughing, though. "I don't take jobs anymore. I work for myself." "Well, you might be interested in this one. He says you're run down, that you're all but retired." "And who's he?"
"I don't know much about him. He's a cyborg. Long past cyborg, I think. Might have run out of flesh to fuse the steel to. Might just be a robot by now. Goes by the name, Terry Chrome."
"We'll see who's out of touch," she says, and jacks herself out of the other world. She looks at her bed and sighs. Won't get much sleep tonight. The hunt's calling. She gazes out of her window over the blasted-out wasteland of Rio de Janeiro as she plugs her arm back into the blade. Some people can't wrap their head around it. The business doesn't need to be successful to be profitable. Sure, it helps, especially at the beginning, but she's not in the beginning of company's business. Grab something with decent gross revenue, but ballooning expenses. Slash the budget, cut anyone who isn't keeping the lights on, squeeze some profit out of it, and sell it at a markup to the first idiot who doesn't look under the hood. Lining up a directorial board that sees it the same way, though, not so easy. These cowards foisted on her by the shareholders are too cowardly or lazy or, and she hates these ones the most, ethical to have that killer instinct. The self-righteous ones are the worst. As if it's ethical to do anything less than everything to make the line go up. So long as you're in the black, you're in the right. She yearned to take them out like she had so many of her rivals before. Take them out to the forest and hunt them like dogs. But there's no challenge in that. These are soft, helpless fools, fish in a barrel. She's like the Skull Merchant. She only hunts apex predators. She'll have to do this the old-fashioned way, through remorseless, bureaucratic maneuvers. Finally, a target worth pursuing. It's been a while since we had a good one, and this is a really, really good one. Former military turned private contractor, retired from the battlefield to a quiet hobby farm to the northwest. Some say he survived months alone in the forest with nothing but a combat knife. And he's got the one parcel of land that stands between Adriana and the factory she's trying to build. Weeks of talks go nowhere. He doesn't want to sell. Bigger numbers do nothing to change his mind. The board starts talking about selling the land surrounding his, to give up on the factory, to build somewhere else. They might be right, but that doesn't matter. She doesn't lose. She doesn't come in second place. So she goes to meet him herself, face to face. She mentions the offer. He politely refuses again. That's too bad. She hopes his will is up to date. As she leaves, she feels a flush cross her face. She overplayed her hand. A guy like that will be hyper-vigilant now. It won't be easy to extract him, and it sure as hell won't be easy to hunt him. But as her mind wanders to the hunt, the nerves turn into excitement. She'll figure it out. She just needs to learn everything about him. Adriana looks into her new arm-mounted display. Her drone floats 50 stories above the city, at the unfinished penthouse of a new luxury building her company invested in. Through its camera, she sees the soldier awakening from a chemically assisted slumber. She watches as he shakes himself awake, immediately alert and focused. He rushes to the edge of the building and nearly falls. Not like that, old man. Don't make this easy. She watches as he finds his bearings, stalks around the building, getting a feel for its blueprints, finds the combat knife she so kindly left for him to defend himself, and descends the first flight of stairs towards freedom. She knows the layout of this building like the back of her hand. She moves her drones into position. Of course, a soldier like him will have the wherewithal to avoid them, but catching him moving isn't the point. They're there to cut off options, to herd him exactly where she wants him. He'll know that too. That's what makes the game so fun. Two brilliant minds, each playing 6 steps ahead. Odds are, even if he'll never admit it, he lives for this too. She straps her blade to her arm, a gleaming silver edge inspired by her father's manga. One more thing to tie her to him. She remembers him reading to her every night from Advalente. How singularly focused he was on his craft. It was the thing she admired most about him. She owed it to him to keep his vision intact. More than intact. Alive. If nobody would buy the Skull Merchant story, she would become the Skull Merchant. One way or another, people will know his story.